record from the computer. Okay, so we are all recorded. So thank you guys so much again for attending. And I'm gonna go ahead and get started with discussing TTAP and our services, and then give the presentation over to Haley from the ARC to kind of discuss the Master Pooled Special Needs Trust. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. Can everyone see properly? Awesome. Also, please make sure that y'all are muted. I have a couple people. Okay, thank you so much. So
you wrote some stuff on here. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Sorry, we still have. Okay, thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it. So the Texas Technology Access Program, or TTAP for short, we are the State Assistive Technology Program, and we're going to go over kind of the services that we offer if y'all aren't familiar. So what is assistive technology? So for folks who are not familiar, assistive technology, or AT, is any device, whether that be an item, piece of equipment, or product system, whether acquired commercially off the shelf, modified, or customized, that is used to increase, maintain, or improve the functional capabilities of people with disabilities. And then AT service is any service that directly assists an individual with a disability in either the selection, acquisition, or use of assistive technology device. And that is from the 21st Century AT Act. And basically, TTAP, we are the Texas state-based program, but basically every state and territory is authorized to give a range of assistive technology device services. So our mission at TTAP is to increase access for people with disabilities to assistive technology, AT, that provides them with more control over their immediate environments and enhanced ability to function independently. And our main core services include device demonstration, whether that be in person here at our headquarters out of UT Austin, or at one of our demo centers that are spread across the state of Texas. Both in person and virtual options are available for device demonstrations. We also have a reuse and recycle partnership with a really great organization out of San Antonio called Project Mend, and they do a fantastic job with basically refurbishing durable medical equipment such as wheelchairs and rollators, for instance. So they're really great for folks in the greater area to either donate unneeded or unused DME that they might have, or get it at a sliding scale cost that is affordable. We also help to provide funding resources, so we can help show people the kind of funding sources that are out there that are available, whether that be through health insurance, through the school system, through private organizations or charities. And additionally, one of our main services is that we offer short-term device loans of up to 35 days for folks to test out a variety of assistive technology. And that can be in any area from augmentative and alternative communication to visual and hearing impairment equipment to environmental controls, for instance, for folks with physical disabilities. And then additionally, we offer dissemination of information regarding AT, so we can offer different technical assistance and general information to folks who are curious about how we can help them, and then additionally resources for assistive technology. But part of my position is that I am the alternative financing coordinator, and I look to help Texans with disabilities and older adults know of the different financial resources that are out there, whether that be regarding savings or investment. In this case, it was a great way to partner with the ARC of Texas to highlight a very important resource that could be available to folks, especially folks who disabled folks who utilize government benefits and therefore have limited resource limits. For instance, they can only have $2,000 at a time. The Master Pool Trust can be a really great way to help save money and pay for needed medical expenses or needed expenses outside of what Medicaid or SSI might cover. And then a shameless plug that I want to discuss is our conference coming up in June down here in Austin. So it's called Viva La Vida with AT, and this year's theme is transition. It's going to be a really, really fun time, and I highly recommend that people either look to attend or even maybe could be exhibiting at the conference. So just wanted to throw that out there. And then here's our contact info for folks who might not already be familiar with us, the QR code on screen just goes to our website to look at all of our main services. And here is my contact information, cole.glosser@austin.utexas.edu. And then our funding page. So I am going to stop the screen share and go ahead and turn it on over to Haley. So thank you so much again for presenting with us.
Absolutely. Thank y'all so much. Thank you for having me. Thanks, Cole, for thinking of us and including us in this this conversation. When I started this job, I've been in this role for 12 years as the director of the Master Pooled Trust at the Arc of Texas. I came into this role, and I can say this now, I couldn't say this in the beginning, but I had no clue what I was doing. I had no clue what any of this was. I'd gone to law school, I got my law degree, I passed the bar, but I'm pretty sure I never really knew what a trust was. I wasn't, I thought I knew, but I didn't really get it. And so I love to have this conversation with folks, because I do feel like it's something that you hear about a lot in the disability community, but nobody usually takes the time to actually explain it. They're like, yeah, you just need one, you just need one. Well, what does that mean? And how is it that we can share this as a resource for folks who may need to utilize a trust. So I like to really and truly start at the very, very basics. But I'll tell you what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about what is a trust. I've heard of a supplemental or special needs trust, but what is it? Why might I need a trust? What is the Master Pool Trust or the MPT? What can I use a trust for? And of course, any questions. I do like to keep things interactive. So if y'all do have questions along the way, please feel free to raise your hand or unmute and ask the question. That tends to make things a little more interesting. And it definitely will help to answer your questions while we're addressing that topic along the way. But I always like to start at the very, very basic. And that is, what is a trust? So a trust is really a relationship. It's a relationship where property is held by one party. So sometimes it's a person, sometimes it's an organization or a bank or a group of people. Sometimes they're holding something for the benefit of someone else. Every trust has a beneficiary, and every trust has a trustee. So the beneficiary is the person that the trust is set up to support or to benefit. And the trustee is the person, group of people that make decisions about the things that are held in trust. And that still seems like a sort of abstract thought. But what a trust really is a piece of paper. It is a piece of paper that has some rules. It is a document that outlines what happens to the thing that is quote unquote held in trust. Okay. So it's a piece of paper that gives you rules, and it tells you what happens to those things. So is that, like, if there's money, is that money spent? Is it saved? Can it be used on particular things? What can it be used for? Who can it be used for? How can it be paid out? It can be things like, if there's property, what happens to that property? What do we do with it? Is it sold? Is it meant to be, kept for the individual to live in? Is it something that should be rented out? I mean, it can be any kind of rule that you can think of. It can be very specific, and it can also be very broad. And so without a piece of paper, you don't have a trust. That is the thing I tell people a lot, because oftentimes I'll hear from families or individuals, and they're saying, oh, I have a trust account. I have a bank account that has the name trust on it. And I'm like, well, where's the document? They're like, well, there's no document. We just have a bank account. And I'm like, so then you don't have a trust, which is something that I think oftentimes people don't really know, because again, you hear it a lot, like, oh, you're going to need a trust. You're going to need a trust. Well, what does that mean? And so when we think about this, think about it in terms of, it's a piece of paper that is giving that trustee rules about what they can do for the benefit of the beneficiary. Okay. And a supplemental needs trust, which is, or a special needs trust is what it's often called. We like to call it a supplemental needs trust. But it is drafted specifically for the purpose of protecting means tested benefits. That is the purpose of an S&T. And so what that means is that it has very specific language that Social Security and Medicaid have said is the language that needs to be in this trust in order for us to accept it as an appropriate S&T. I have a list here of some of, and definitely not all, there are 109 Medicaid programs in the state of Texas. This isn't all Medicaid, this is other things as well, but this is just some of it, and some of the larger programs that are means tested. And so that trust is drafted specifically to protect these types of benefits. And as Cole mentioned, in order to qualify for a lot of these programs, you can't have more than $2,000 to your name without it being put in a very specific account. So you can't have more than $2,000 in your savings account and checking account together. You cannot go past that asset limit in order to qualify for these benefits. They have not changed this number in a very long time. We are still hopeful that it will change one day. Questionable, but maybe it will. But until then, you've got a couple of options. And I know that Cole worked with the Texas ABLE program to do a presentation recently about ABLE accounts, which are fantastic. And we'll get into a little bit about the differences between a trust and an ABLE account in a little bit. But so we're one of the tools. A trust is one of the tools in the toolkit around being able to have additional assets without getting kicked off of these programs. And so an S&T has very specific language in it that that Social Security and Medicaid kind of have a say in whether or not it is an appropriate trust. The reason that S&Ts are able to be used is because the superpower that is given to these trusts is invisibility. It's not really invisible, but that's the way I kind of like to look at it. And what it really means is Medicaid and Social Security, they say, okay, you had this money, whether it was the individual's money or somebody else's money set aside for the individual, but it's not yours anymore. The trust owns that property. So it benefits you, but is not your money anymore. And because it's not your money anymore or ever was, we don't count it. We don't consider it to be an asset that we can count. So there's a number of things that aren't counted as assets, even if you own them. Everybody gets one car, everybody gets one house. I mean, I don't get it. You're allowed to own it without impacting those benefits. And an S&T is one of those things that also is considered an exempt asset. So it's invisible for Social Security and Medicaid purposes. When we think about S&Ts, there's a lot of different ways to use them. So sometimes it's, I came into money, I need to set, I need to set it aside so that I can continue to get my benefits and I want to use it long-term. So number one, you can manage money with it. You can have it set aside. You can have it in in a trust that you're able to still benefit from without having direct access to it. It also helps some people to manage money who maybe just don't need access to a bunch of money. I know that there's a lot of people in my life who, if they were given $20,000, would make some real poor decisions. And if it were my money that I was setting aside for somebody, I'd want them to maybe make some decisions that I thought were appropriate. And sometimes people just don't need access to a bunch of money because of their disability specifically. Maybe they don't either have the education or knowledge or experience in managing money. And so it's nice to have somebody else there. It avoids a guardianship of the estate. I can talk more about that, but if you don't have to be involved with the courts, don't be involved with the courts. And appropriate planning actually allows people to avoid that guardianship of the estate, and it allows you to have the trustee and the individual to have a little more autonomy when it comes to funds that are used out of the trust. It protects those public benefits while improving the quality of life. Our goal here at the Arc of Texas is always about improving quality of life. That's what our goal is always going to be with the funds that are held in trust here. Excuse me. If you have to live off of SSI, you are a master budgeter, you are a master magician to make life work. And so in having additional funds available through a trust really help to benefit that quality of life, because it is so hard to live off of the, I won't call it measly because it is very helpful for a lot of people, but it is a very small amount of money, and in an attempt to live off of it can be very difficult. So, really it's that protection of those benefits and while still improving that quality of life. The other piece that it does, it safeguards against predators and creditors. So one of the things that that is included is what's called a spendthrift provision in most, if not all, trusts, which basically says, okay, the individual gets sued or the individual goes and does something that's not smart. They end up having creditors that want money from them. Those creditors can't access the trust. So even if the individual does some things that maybe aren't so smart, that doesn't mean that the creditors have access to the trust, because it's not the individual's money, it's the trust's money. So there is no way that they can get access to that. Same thing with predators. Now, predators are going to be there no matter what. There are those people who are going to exist regardless of what things are put in place. But trust can be a good way, a good just check between the predator and the funds. We had an individual who was one of our beneficiaries. She was an older woman who lived on her own and met the love of her life online. He was 40 years her junior, and they were engaged and they were going to get married, and all she needed was to give him $50,000 to buy a house in Atlanta. And so we, of course, are like, hey, like I call her up and I ask her, what's going on? Who's this guy? She's really excited about him and really happy about all of this. And, I didn't want to burst her bubble, but I said, send over all the documentation. Let's look at everything. And, we got a supposed copy of his passport. We got all the documentation. We got letters from lawyers. We got all of these things. Turns out none of it was real. The attorney's office was the same address as the Braves stadium. The attorney didn't exist. The home wasn't owned by the people that were supposedly selling it. I mean, there was just a lot of like red flag after red flag. And so we were able to tell her, no, sorry, we're not going to do this. Sorry, we're not gonna be able to. She was very angry, very, very angry at us, and was not very happy with it. But we knew that we were doing the right thing in protecting her, the funds that were here held for her. About a year later, he was still around. He was sticking around, and he was in Europe and needed a kidney transplant, so he needed $10,000 for that, and she really wanted us to send money to him for that too. We obviously did not, but it was a way for us to really safeguard against that predator for her. And again, you're not going to find all of them, but that is one check that is in between, those folks and somebody who has has a trust. So it's a nice balance. Some people don't like that there's somebody in between them and the money, but the reality is that's the only way you can keep those benefits. So the other thing that I have on here is child support. If anybody here is working with individuals with disabilities who are turning 18 and the parents are getting child support, the only way for that child support not to be counted against that individual once they turn 18 is for those funds to go directly to a S&T. And so Social Security starts counting that child support regardless of where it goes against the child, the individual. And so at that point, the fund should be directed to an S&T rather than to the parent directly. And the reason that allows it to be considered basically assigned to somewhere else, and it's irrevocably assigned to the trust, and therefore it's not counted as income to that individual who's applying for SSI once they've turned 18 and child support is still involved. So that's something to consider. Know that it exists. Know that that is important for the people that you might know who are applying for benefits and have child support involved. All right. We look at it a lot as an alternative to guardianship. We like to definitely put it out there as an alternative to guardianship. A lot of times people need help with money. A lot of people need help with money, regardless of disability or not. And so preparing appropriately, families preparing appropriately, or just being able to use them in lieu of a guardian of the estate is super helpful. And so that's something that we like to talk to folks about. I'm going like my mouse is having its own life today. So there's a couple of different types of trusts, and the number one kind is what's called a first party trust. So that's my money that I'm setting aside for myself. That is an inheritance that was left to me directly. It's if I worked and had a 401k, certain ones are counted. Certain ones are counted, certain ones aren't for Medicaid purposes. They cash that out, put it over into a trust. Savings accounts, if somebody needs to become qualified. Lawsuit settlements, we see a lot of lawsuit settlements. You get into a car accident, they want to give you some money so that you don't, sue them further, or they just give you money because you did sue them. Those things can be counted as assets. So something that can be sent over to an S&T. The one thing about a first party or self-settled trust, so my money that I'm setting aside for myself, is that it does have a Medicaid payback provision. And what that really is, it says, and this is different than an ABLE account, so I'll point that out in a little while, but with a trust, if Medicaid has spent money on behalf of that individual over their lifetime, which is different than the ABLE account. So their entire life worth of Medicaid is counted. So if there's money that is left in the trust at the time that the beneficiary passes away, if Medicaid is owed funds back, then Medicaid gets paid back first. And then if there are funds left over, then it goes to individuals that are listed in that trust if there are funds. If you've had Medicaid for a long time, there's a good chance there's not going to be anything left. But for others, there would be. But it's something that everybody should know. Medicaid basically says if it was your money and you're setting aside, we're letting you have it over your lifetime. We're letting you hang on to that. But after you passed away, if there's anything left, we want it back. And so that is something that is required of all S&T, all self-settled. So again, my money I've set aside for myself, those types of trusts, that is required. Third-party trusts. This is the trust that families use for their future planning. This is the stuff that's used in a will, a beneficiary of a life insurance policy. This is my money that I'm setting aside for someone else. And so this is what you use for that future planning. These third-party trusts do not have a Medicaid payback provision. So that is the thing that is important for people to understand and know, is that if you plan appropriately, Medicaid's not getting it. If you don't plan appropriately, Medicaid might get it. So that's something to consider when you're thinking about your future planning. If someone wants to leave you something as a person with a disability, say, hey, set up a trust for me, let's put it over in a trust, rather than giving it to me directly. And so that's something that is important to understand and know those differences.
Haley? So sorry,
Yes.
one thing. Uh, can everyone please turn off or please make sure that they are muted? I'm kind of hearing some feedback from somebody, so please make sure that everyone has their mics muted. Appreciate it. Okay, sorry.
No worries. No worries. So there are types of trusts. So there are traditional trusts. These are the trusts that you're going to go to an attorney. You're going to find the attorney. They're going to draft it for you. It's very specific to you and your situation. It's very specific to what it is that you want from a trust. And it is individually drafted and individually approved by Social Security and Medicaid. A pooled trust, which is what I'll talk about next, which is what I do, is a trust that is managed by a nonprofit organization, who, in our case, we serve as the manager, and we have a trustee that works alongside us. We have master trust documents that are already drafted and approved by Social Security. And I'll get into some details on that. One of the things that I do like to share with people is that I'm going to talk about the master pooled trust today, but there are other pooled trusts out there. So I'm going to tell you about how ours works, but we may not be the right fit for you. And so if, if you still would like a pooled trust and we're not the right one, there are others out there. There's a list of ones across the country. And so just know we're not the only ones, but I will tell you about us. So we are, the Master Pool Trust has been around for 27, 28 years. I don't know. We've been around a minute. Okay. We opened our first trust in 1997. So somebody do the math. And since then, we have been operating and serving people across the state of Texas. We currently serve people in 153 of the 254 counties. We have people in 26 other states and 4 other countries. So we serve people all over. But in order to set up a trust with the ARC of Texas, you do have to meet Social Security's definition of a person with a disability. You do have to be a resident of Texas at the time that the trust is established, and we only take cash assets. So if you're thinking about yourself or a loved one who maybe there is property or other things involved, you're probably not going to look to a pooled trust. There are some pooled trusts out there who do handle property, but we are not one of them. We like to keep our things relatively simple because we want to be able to serve the most people we can with the lowest fee. So we only handle cash. The ARC of Texas serves as the manager. So we handle all the day-to-day operations of our trust. So we talk to our beneficiaries, we talk to their representatives. We direct the bank. We are the ones that make the approvals. We do all of the day-to-day work. We have Providence First as our trustee. They handle all of our taxes, and they have ultimate oversight over the trust. And then we have JP Morgan Chase as our financial advisor, financial administrator and investment advisor. We've been working with them for the last 24 years. And all 3 of us work together to make our trust run. The reason it's called a master pooled trust is because we have 4 master trust documents. Those documents are already drafted. They're ready to go. They're the same for everyone. They cannot be changed. And they are already approved by Social Security and Medicaid. You join using our quote unquote joinder agreement, which again is the same for everyone, depending on which trust you choose. And again, been approved. We have right now about 2,000 active sub-accounts. And all 4 of our trusts, so I'll get into the differences of the trust, but all 4 of our trusts help protect benefits. So that is the important thing to recognize, is that all 4 of these are going to help protect those benefits. And they're already ready to go. They're already drafted. You don't have to have an attorney do anything when it comes to establishing the trust. And it's pooled, so master pooled trust is because all of our sub-accounts are pooled together for investment purposes. And so that helps us keep our fees relatively low, and it allows us to invest in a number of things that may be difficult for a smaller trust to invest in. We have no minimum and no maximum amounts, so we have trusts as few as a few $100s to as large as a few $1 million. So we've got everything kind of in between. And so we're really here to serve everyone, so long as it's cash assets and not property. We have our pool. So we have the whole pool of funds, which right now is around $140 million. But everybody doesn't have access to that whole 140. I know you wish you did. So do I, but I don't. Everybody has their own sub account. So whatever money you place in the trust is set into what we call a sub account for the individual. And each individual gets their portion of the whole when it comes to investments, earnings, or losses. We do, it is invested in the stock market, as any trust really would be. So there's everybody gets that back into their account. So if it's earnings or losses, which overall we have a earnings over the years, we had about a 15% rate of return last year. Everybody gets their portion of the whole. So if we have $100 million, you've got $1 million, you get 1% of whatever the earnings or losses are. So we don't take any of that as an organization. We just have a fee that we charge. So our fee is a minimum of $300. This is our fee schedule. It's pretty simple, and it is comparable to other trusts. I realized that I didn't on this one. I don't get into, but we do have both first party trusts and third party trusts. So we've got ones that you can set up yourself, which is our trust 2 and 4. And then we also have our third party trust, the ones that you're going to use with your will or your life insurance policy as well. So we have trust 1 and 3 are those, trust 2 and 4 are self-settled ones. I recommend our trusts 3 and 4. Those are our quote unquote newer trusts. They were developed about 3 years after our original trust. And they have discretionary language. So basically we can work with the individual and their situation to determine what's appropriate to spend money on and what's not, depending on what benefits they're receiving. As y'all know, individuals with disabilities go in and out of getting benefits depending on when you're working, when you're not working, how much you're working, what whether or not you've gotten onto a new program or something like that. And so we work with individuals to be able to determine what's appropriate without impacting benefits with each individual. So it's really nice. One of the things that is interesting is that there are a lot of rules. In case y'all didn't know, Medicaid and Social Security have a lot of rules, and they're weird. A lot of them don't make sense. A lot of them are very frustrating. But one of the things that I like to talk about is distributions from an S&T and what's appropriate and what can impact benefits and what can't. And so the number one thing on a self-settled trust, so my money that I've set aside for myself, is that there is a sole benefit rule. And what that means is that any distribution that is from my trust that I set up for myself, it must be for my benefit. I can't pay for my whole family to go on a trip. It is paid for me to go on the trip and one person to go with me. But it's not to pay for my whole family. Things like that. So that is what the sole benefit rule is. Generally, we don't pay for food or shelter because that's what SSI is supposed to pay for. Medicaid counts any payments that are made from a trust for food or shelter as either their dollar for dollar or as in-kind support and maintenance, which can reduce what somebody gets from SSI. Or Medicaid potentially. They don't give cash, can't give cash directly to the individual with a disability if they're receiving benefits because it's considered income to them. And anything that wouldn't be considered a non-exempt asset. So, for example, if somebody already has one car and they want you to buy another car, you can't have two cars without it being considered an asset. And so that's something generally we're not gonna purchase as a second car. There are some weird rules along that line, but generally anything that would be considered a non-exempt asset, we're not going to pay for. We have a toolkit on our website that is like ridiculously long and has so much information. So if you're super interested, you can go read it. It is about 100 pages, but it's kind of got everything under the sun that you could think about that you might need to know about the Master Pooled Trust. If you enroll with us, you get a physical copy of it, but it is available on the website if anybody just has an interest in seeing it. I will say that overall, most pooled trusts are going to operate similarly to us. We all do the exact same thing differently, but it's going to look similar. So you can see what that looks like as far as our toolkit is concerned and how our processes work. We have included in that, and this is kind of grainy, so I apologize. It's not a good one to read, but that is included in our toolkit and available on our website. And this is our general guidelines for disbursements, and other people use this as a reference. So we're gonna pay for things that aren't gonna be considered income for Social Security or Medicaid purposes. So things like cable, internet, phone services, those aren't considered utilities. They're not considered food or shelter. We'll pay for personal care items, clothes, medical expenses, personal attendant care that's not otherwise covered, rehab, companion care, travel, quality of life things that just make your life fun and, exciting. We pay for concerts, we pay for, toys, we pay for computers, we pay for a lot of assistive technology, actually, a whole lot of assistive technology. We pay for therapies, we pay for really, again, anything that's going to improve the quality of life of our beneficiaries that's not considered income for Social Security and Medicaid purposes. There are a few things that we generally don't pay for, things like rent, as I mentioned before, utilities. We don't pay for food either. We're hoping Social Security makes some changes around that. We'll see if maybe that happens later this year. Alcohol, we don't pay for alcohol because it's considered food, not because we don't believe in paying for alcohol, but it's considered food, so we can't do it. Gambling, gambling just because it's cash, you can only gamble with cash. So we can't do charitable donations or gifts to other people because, again, it's not going to be meet that sole benefit rule. The other thing we don't pay is taxes, so that's something that is difficult. But as y'all learned through the ABLE presentation, if anybody came to that, ABLE accounts can pay for things like food and shelter without impacting benefits. So we actually work alongside ABLE accounts a lot. So we send money from a trust to an ABLE account. That is an appropriate distribution under Medicaid and Social Security's rules. So so we are able to make distributions to ABLE, where then the ABLE account can pay for those things without impacting benefits. We love ABLE accounts. We work with them all the time, and we think that they really are fantastic. I have a quick comparison for those of you who are at ABLE, or even if you weren't. Here's some information that is interesting to know. I realize I didn't update it for 2024, but I do know the number. So with an S&T or a master pool trust, a person with a disability of any age can have an S&T or establish an S&T. If you're over the age of 65, there are some weird rules around self-settled stuff. You can only use a pooled trust, but that's my little asterisk. But most, like, overall, a person of a disability that has a disability of any age can establish a trust. You can have more than one account. You can have as many S&Ts or MPTs or trusts that you want. I don't recommend a lot because that's just a lot of paperwork, but you can have as many as you want, and multiple types. We have a lot of folks who have a self-settled trust, so their money that they set up for themselves alongside the third party trust where their loved one maybe has set aside funds for them. You can contribute any amount that you want to an S&T, whereas an ABLE account has different rules. SSI benefits aren't impacted by what's held in the trust, so that's an important thing to recognize, but it does not grow tax-free. There are taxes that are associated with trust accounts that are going to be different than an ABLE account, whereas the ABLE accounts, you got to have, right now, you have to have had the disability before the age of 26. You have to have your the onset of that disability had to be before the age of 26. You'd only have one account with an ABLE. You can, this year it's $18,000, but up to the federal gift tax exemption amount. You can you can place up to $500,000 in Texas ABLE account as of right now. And so there is that limit on that. And then SSI benefits are going to be suspended after you get over $100,000. ABLE accounts, though, grow tax-free, which is awesome. And their Medicaid payback provision is slightly different. Theirs is actually a creditor. Medicaid is the first creditor on an ABLE account. And it's at that point, it is from the time of inception of the ABLE account moving forward, rather than the entire life, like it is with an S&T, a self-settled S&T.
Also, Haley,
yeah.
Oh, sorry, I did want to mention another thing that I'm aware of with ABLE accounts is kind of that $100,000 balance limit before SSI gets cut off. While SSI gets cut off, I still believe that, and I'm pretty sure it's the case that Medicaid can still continue on, it can still continue on past if somebody were to go over that $100,000 limit, whereas SSI would be cut off, but Medicaid would still be protected. So that is kind of another benefit,
yes,
to those of ABLE accounts in that way, for sure.
Absolutely. And like I said, we love ABLE accounts. We definitely recommend them often. I think, one of the things, it looks like Michelle has a question. Michelle, go for it.
I'm curious. So typically, if you have more than $100,000 to give for the benefit of a person with a disability, should $100,000 be in an ABLE account and then the rest be in a pooled trust, and then have it go over when they go below 100,000, or how does that work? I don't want to, my biggest concern is that I'll impact his benefits by trying to provide extra support.
Yeah. So, So the biggest thing is I don't recommend putting a huge sum of money into an ABLE account at any point. Number one, you can only put in the gift tax amount, which is $18,000 this year. So you wouldn't even be able to put that in all at once. So I recommend that if you've got a large sum of money that you're looking at, look into a trust, whether it be a pooled trust or a traditional trust. If you've got a large sum of money, definitely look at a trust. If it's your money that you're setting aside, those third party trusts don't have those Medicaid payback provisions and can work well with an ABLE account. So they can actually send money every month or every quarter or every year to those ABLE accounts, to be able to utilize the benefits of an ABLE account without actually impacting those benefits. So depending on the amount of money that you're looking at is really where you look at, is an ABLE account right for me, as a trust right for me? Because you can only put that limited amount of money in there, ABLE accounts can only be used for amounts of money that are less than whatever that gift tax exemption amount is each year. So that's where you would kind of compare the two.
And also kind of adding on to that, I think another good example of like pairing both a special needs pool trust with an ABLE account is, of course, you can put the bulk of of course, the money in a special needs trust or the pool trust. And then, for instance, if your son or anybody who was using benefits would like wanted to live independently or have support with covering housing or food costs, that is a good way of like where you can transfer some of those funds to the ABLE account to pay for those, to kind of have that wraparound, if you will. So I think that's a really good example of how having both in place could be a really good benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other reason that I really love an ABLE account is that it does allow the individual to have control over their own money. So if it's one of those things where a lot of times families are supplementing an individual's life in a number of ways. And so to be able to continue to do that after you've passed away, if you've passed away, I hate that. I hate thinking about those things, but it's reality. But also it just gives people independence. One of the things that I hate about our role as manager is that I am between people and the funds that are available to support them, and I can't give it to them directly. We have options and ways in order to be able to distribute funds that people can have access to. But with an ABLE account, partnering with an ABLE account really allows you to have that independence, which I find to be the most useful piece of an ABLE account, is to encourage that independence and that autonomy that everybody wants to have. And when you have a disability, oftentimes a lot of that is taken away from you. And so that I just love ABLE accounts. I should be talking about my stuff, but I really do love ABLE accounts. And when it comes to, the master pool trust or other pool trusts, our goal is to serve everyone. If you have an individual S&T, if you have your own trust drafted, that's great, but that means you have to find your own trustee. That means you have to figure out how the money's going to be invested, and you have to do a lot of groundwork to make that happen. And that can become that can become difficult. I'm looking to see that there was a couple of questions earlier. The $2,000 asset limit is not a Texas thing. It is a federal thing, unfortunately. But it looks like that was answered by Cole.
And I will say on that, Haley, I'm curious, and maybe this is kind of different for Medicaid waivers in other states, but like for sure, it's also an issue for Medicaid waiver limits, I guess, or resource limits, correct, in Texas for sure.
Certain Medicaid waivers have different limits, asset limits. Different Medicaid programs all have different asset limits depending on which one you're in. The waivers, most of the waivers though do have that $2,000 limit. And then there was a question around over 65. So as far as individuals over the age of 65, if it's their own money that they're setting aside for themselves, that is only allowed to be used, a pooled trust is only allowed to be used. And if they're applying for Medicaid, it can still be considered what they call a transfer of assets problem, which basically says you're not getting the value of the money that you transferred. So we're going to penalize you if you need long-term services and supports. It's a very complicated issue. But individuals over the age of 65 can set up a third-party trust for someone, themselves being over 65 or the beneficiary being over 65. So third-party trusts aren't impacted by that. It's only the first-party trusts. So an individual over 65 setting aside money for themselves. Are there any other questions? I feel like that is, oh yeah.
I have a question. You mentioned SSI. What about somebody who received SSDI?
Oh, the rules are all different. So if they've got SSDI, then there are other ways that things that might be able to be paid for that wouldn't be paid for under SSI. So SSDI does not count in-kind support and maintenance. So I could pay for rent, I could pay for utilities, and that wouldn't be counted for SSDI purposes. Now, if they have Medicaid on top of that, then the SSI rules apply. So that's the problem, is that if you've got Medicaid, basically, and this is an oversimplification, but the easiest way to explain it is Medicaid and SSI, they share very similar rules. SSDI, they got great rules. They're easy, all that. But as soon as you connect that Medicaid to it, that's whenever you got to start going back to those SSI rules. Any other questions? Yeah.
I'm going through the process of this with my brother. That's the reason I'm asking a lot of
Okay.
questions. What about a person who lives in a nursing home?
How old is he?
He's 55. He received
Okay.
SSDI and Medicaid.
So, if you live in a nursing home has the same rules as a waiver program would. And so depending on what you wanted to pay for, again, the food and shelter is still going to be counted depending on how much money he has in SSDI versus what it is that you're looking for. So if he's living in a nursing facility, and is he looking to move out, or is it just that there's going to be money set aside to be used for him? Yeah.
So
And
some
so,
money
yeah,
would
go ahead.
arrive. My mom passed away, so some money
Okay.
would arrive, and I would like to do what is called a master pool trust for him.
Yeah. And what we would be able to do then is pay for, and a lot of that's going to be quality of life things. So paying for additional things, that he might need. We can do things like pay for a private room if he doesn't have a private room, if that's something that he's interested in. So there are definitely some ways to go around, to work within that system. And so we just need to understand what services he's getting so that we can look at all the things that are a part of that system. And then Michelle had a question, then Vicky.
Okay, so if you have insurance benefits like a life insurance policy, should it then be named to the trust on their behalf? Should they be the beneficiary? How should that be set up? Don't do that. Sorry.
Yeah. No. You're good. You're good. So the beneficiary of the life insurance policy should be a trust, not the individual. Okay. So if there's a life insurance policy that's involved, the trust should be established, and the beneficiary of that life insurance policy should be the trust. The beneficiary of your 401k should be a trust, not the individual. Okay. Because then that keeps that Medicaid payback provision from happening. And then that money gets to be used for them. If you use it all, great. But if you don't, then it can go to your other people in, your life as the person that's establishing that trust or funding that trust, that you can decide where the funds go after you passed away.
Okay, so if something happens to him, I can designate who is the next beneficiary of the money that I provide on his behalf. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
As long as it's in a third party trust, you get to decide where it goes after he's passed away.
Thank you.
Yeah, Vicky.
if a person is living in a nursing facility at this time and they want to get out of the facility, would setting up the trust and then say like they do fundraisers or whatever to help them to get out of the nursing facility, is that how this trust would work? I'm trying to help.
So
a
number
friend.
one, yeah, if they want to get out of the nursing facility, there are waivers that they should be able to access. You need to talk to somebody at the facility and tell them PASSAR. I know that that sounds weird, but PASSAR. And so basically the nursing facility's job should be to help them get out of that nursing facility. So there are, I know, but you can also talk to Disability Rights Texas if it's somebody that wants to get out of a facility, and that they are having problems accessing services to be able to get out of that facility. Something called Money Follows the Person. And it's something that should be able to be used. Now, if you're doing fundraisers, depending on how much money you're looking at, you got to be careful with fundraisers. They can mess up benefits. But ABLE accounts are great for that because you can set up an ABLE account. There's a link. People can donate directly to the ABLE account, and it allows them to raise money directly into that ABLE account so that they can have access to those funds without it impacting benefits.
Okay.
Does the ABLE account still have the $18,000 per year limit? So if everybody
does.
pools, 18,000 is the most a person can have in ABLE for a year.
Correct.
Yeah,
And
per
yeah,
year,
and there's
yes.
a way to with the gift things, they'll stop it at that point. Like they have a system to stop them there from being additional funds placed in. But yeah, that is an issue with the ABLE. If you do something like a GoFundMe or something like that, I recommend talking to an attorney because you will need to get a trust established for those funds to go to. And so that's something to talk to an attorney if you do decide to, if anybody's doing anything like that, talk to an attorney before you start that because that can impact benefits.
So can I just tell the young man to call you because I'll get it all crazy?
Yeah, you can. Yeah. And I think that I think our contact information is on the next one. You can have them email trust at the Arc of Texas. That goes to our whole department. So I say this because I'm going to be out next week. So if it comes in next week, it'll get to them, but that's our contact information. But feel free to reach out or give us a call. And we can get you to a good person who can direct you to the right place to be able to get the support that he needs to be able to get out.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic.
I think we're right at 2:00, Cole.
Does
I'll let
anyone,
you
yes,
take
does
it
anyone
over.
else have any other questions before we end the webinar? Just give it a moment. Well, if nobody else has anything else, thank you so much again, Haley,
Yeah.
for presenting on this. It's really great to know the different tools that are available for people with significant disabilities or people with disabilities who are having to navigate different benefit systems that,
So many systems. Yeah.
have these really harsh resource limits. And it's good to know that, people are able to get, those quality of life purchases made through things like ABLE accounts and Full Social Needs Trust. So thank you so much again.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
and just a heads up, y'all, I will be looking to, because I know some people are kind of in and out of the recording. I will look to send a follow-up email once I have this recording posted to TTAP's YouTube page. And I'll also send out some resources both from the Master Pool Trust's website, as well as kind of give some clarity, or not clarity, give the website information for Texas ABLE as well, for folks to learn a little bit more about ABLE accounts as well.
Yeah. And Cole, I'll send my slides over to you so that you can include those with
Fantastic.
everything as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much,
Thank
Haley.
y'all so
So then I
much.
think I'll go ahead and end it here. Thank you all so much again.
All
Appreciate it.
right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.